Hello everyone, Darkblane here, back playing some more AFK Arena. And in this video, I want to look at the Graveborn engravings. I want to look at all the heroes just to see whether, which heroes are going to do well with the engraving and which heroes would be better off just not engraving in general. So let's get on with the video. Okay, so before I talk about the engravings here, I'm turning 20 years old today. So yeah, it's very cool that I'm turning 20, the big 20. So yeah, that's very cool to me. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead now and start with Grizzle's engraving. I'm gonna look at their skills first. Shadow Shield is first. Grizzle forms a shield around the furthest forward ally that is currently not protected by Shadow Shield, allowing them to mitigate 150% of the damage they receive. If the Shadow Shield is destroyed while in use, it will cause 120% damage to nearby enemy targets. And at level 2, shield armor increased by up to 200%, and damage is increased by up to 150%. Reduces enemies' energy by 100 energy points. Level 3, damage is increased by up to 200%. So if I look at the engravings here, shield value is increased to 240% of attack rating. So the shield is, for level 2, it's 200%, so it's increasing it by a 40%, which honestly, I don't think that's really going to do too much for Grizzle. The main reason he uses them is really just for the damage he does in a Twisted Realm and everything like that. That's really the main reason people use Grizzle. Deathly Protection. During battles, damage dealt to all allied heroes from intelligence-based enemies is reduced by 15%. At level 2, during battles, damage dealt to allied Graveborn heroes from intelligence-based enemies is reduced by an additional 15%. And at level 3, during battle, damage dealt to all allied heroes from intelligence-based heroes is reduced by 20%. So, again, looking back at the engravings for the second skill, during battles, the time of all debuffs dealt to allies by intelligence-based enemies is reduced by 20%. So I feel like this could do something. It's reducing the time of all debuffs by 20%. But the only problem is it's only doing it for intelligence-based enemies. So the strength-based and the agility-based enemies will not have this effect on them. It's only the intelligence-based enemies. I feel like if you have a team where they're using mostly intelligence-based enemies, this could work somewhat, but yeah, I don't know I don't think this is really going to do anything most of the time, though. Yeah, overall, I think Grez might do just fine without his engraving. Okay, moving on to the second hero, Shamira. Moving on to her first engraving skill, Silence. Shamira deals 100% damage to a mage-based enemy and simultaneously prevents them from casting any abilities for several seconds. And at level 2, damage is increased by up to 130%. The time the enemy is prevented from attacking is extended. Time extension based on Shamira's HP. And at level 3, damage is increased to 150%. Looking at her first engraving skill, damage is increased to 170%. So it's increasing it by 20 points, or 20%, which is that's pretty average based on what I've seen from the other factions. And looking at the second one, Wrath. Shamira deals more damage the more health she possesses. Shamira's damage can be increased by up to 30%. Now level 2 crit rating increases up to an additional 30%. And at level 3, damage is increased by up to 40%. So, again, looking at Shamira's second one here. After using the ultimate ability Tortured Souls, Shamira ignores all health requirements and receives the maximum damage increase, which lasts for 8 seconds. So the maximum damage increase is 40%, I believe. So she's going to be able to do 40% more damage the more health she possesses. So yeah, she'll be doing the maximum 40%. That one I don't really know exactly is really going to help with anything. I mean, I don't really know if that's really going to help. That's not really that much damage, I don't think. So I just don't know about Shamira's plus 60 though. But overall, it sounds like Shamira is going to be about average for her engraving. And then going over to Thorin, Thorin's resurrection ability. Thorin resurrects himself after dying with 60% of his health restored. This ability can only be used once per battle. And after being resurrected, nearby enemies are stunned for 3 seconds. And at level 3, 75% of max HP is stored. So, Thorin's first engraving skill here. Thorin attack rating is increased by 20% for 10 seconds after being resurrected. This one, I feel like could do something for the Thorin cheese. It's increasing the attack rating, which I think means he's gonna do more damage. Which, that might make the Thorin cheese just a tiny bit easier to do. People are just gonna have to test this out with the Thorin cheese, but I don't really know if this one will work like that, but we'll just have to see about that one. And the Taint ability, at the start of battle, Thorin deals 100% damage to the enemy with the least amount of health, also cursing them over the next 15 seconds. If Thorin is still damaged, the cursed enemy will lose health equal to 70% of the damage value. And at level 2, duration is extended up to 25 seconds, and level 3, cursed enemy loses health equal to 75% of the damage Thorin receives. So, looking at Thorin's second engraving skill, while cursed, the enemy target's health recovery is reduced by 50%. So their health recovery is gonna be reduced by 50% while they're cursed, which that sounds pretty decent. That actually sounds pretty good. That might actually help with the Thorin cheese as well. We'll just have to see about that as well. Overall, I feel like the plus 30 and plus 60 might help Thorin with the Thorin cheese. But again, we're just gonna have to test that out just to see if that actually is the case. And moving on to the next Graveborn, Isabella. Looking at her first skill, Cyreep. Isabella continuously casts a spell, stealing 75 energy points every 0.5 seconds from the nearest enemy hero. Level 2, if Isabella finishes casting her spell without being interrupted, she permanently steals 20 points of the enemy's target crit rating. And at level 3, damage taken by Isabella while spell casting is reduced by 60%. So looking at Isabella's first engraving skill here, if Isabella finishes casting her spell without being interrupted, she permanently steals 30 points of the enemy's target crit rating. So she originally steals 20 points, and now she'll be stealing 30 points with the plus 30, which honestly I don't think that's going to help with Isabella. Yeah, I just don't think that will really help. It's only stealing 10 more points there, so yeah, I don't think that's going to help much. And with Surge, casting speed is increased by 15%. At level 2, casting speed is increased by 20%. And at level 3, casting speed is further increased by 15% for the first 10 seconds of battle. So, looking at her second engraving, each time Isabella has successfully cast a spell without being interrupted, her casting speed is increased by 5%. Ability can be stacked up to 5 times. So her casting speed can be increased by a maximum of 25% with this, which it's you have to stack it, which I don't really know if this one will really help. I mean, it might help situationally, but I don't know about this one either. So far, Isabella looks to be kind of below average for her engraving. Moving on to Nara. Looking at her first skill, Impale. When there are no enemy targets in Nara's vicinity, she will proceed to use her grappling hook to impale an enemy and drag them towards herself. Nara will prioritize attacks towards enemies standing opposite herself. Level 2, the targeted enemy bleeds after being impaled, which causes 60% damage per second for 8 seconds. And at level 3, that damage is increased by an additional 5%, so 65% damage per second. So her first engraving skill, the targeted enemy bleeds after being impaled, which causes 70% damage per second for 8 seconds. So it's just only increasing it by another 5%, which, yeah, I don't think that's going to do anything either for Nara. I don't think that will do anything for Nara. And Terrified, a passive ability that causes Nara's attackers to lose 90 energy each time they deal damage to her. Enemies can suffer energy loss up to a maximum of 4 times within 10 seconds. Now, level 3 energy loss by attackers is raised to 110. So, looking at her second skill here, a single target can receive the effects of this ability up to 5 times within 10 seconds. So it's increasing it from 4 times to 5 times within 10 seconds, which I don't really know if that one's going to do anything either. It's just increasing it by 1 time here. Yeah, overall Nara's engraving looks pretty subpar as well. Okay, so looking at Pharrell, terrifies and stuns 2 heroes for 2 seconds and summons an evil spirit which haunts them for 10 seconds. Level 2 terrifies up to 3 enemies, and at level 3, stun effect lasts for up to 3 seconds. Looking at Pharrell's first engraving skill, when fewer than 3 enemies are terrified, enemies are stunned for 4 seconds. So it's increasing the stun by an additional second, and it only goes when fewer than 3 enemies are terrified. For this one, crowd control is always a good thing. So additional crowd control is always nice, but it's only increasing it by 1 second, which I don't know if that one will really do anything, in my opinion. This one might require some testing to really see if it works. But so far, I just don't know if that one will work. It might work situationally, though. And looking at Corrupted Spirit, summons an evil spirit from any fallen hero's corpse that then haunts an enemy for 10 seconds. At level 2, any spirit which are summoned due to one of Pharrell's abilities will remain on the battlefield for 3 seconds. And at level 3, any spirits which are summoned due to one of Pharrell's abilities will remain on the battlefield for 5 seconds. So, looking at his second engraving skill, any spirits which are summoned due to one of Pharrell's abilities will remain on the battlefield for 7 seconds. So it's increasing it by an additional 2 seconds here, which again, this one could be situational, and it might require some testing to really see if this one will be useful. But yeah, they're remaining on the battlefield for an additional 2 seconds with the plus 60. Yeah, we'll just have to see about this one as well. Yeah, overall, it sounds like Pharrell's might be a little bit situational, but it could work out, though. It might work out for Pharrell. And looking at Baden next. Let's see about Baden. Spectral Onslaught. Baden unleashes a 3-stage attack on surrounding enemies, which each attack dealing 135% damage to enemy targets. Level 2, when Baden or his Phantom uses this ability, damage dealt to enemies will be increased by 10% for 7 seconds. This ability can be stacked up to 5 times. And at level 3, damage is increased 150%. So his first engraving skill here, Spectral Onslaught, damage is increased to 160%. So it's only increasing it by 10%, which, yeah, I don't think that's going to do anything. And only 10% damage increase. Yeah, I don't think that one's going to do anything. That one's kind of below average, to be honest, for damage. Okay, looking at Spectral Surge, Bane's attack rating is increased by 3% for every phantom on the battlefield. Bane is also able to mitigate 20% damage for every phantom on the battlefield. At level 2, attack rating of all phantoms are increased up to 4%, and at level 3, attack ratings of all phantoms are increased up to 5%. So, looking at his second engraving, if there are more than 4 phantoms on the battlefield, the original Bane becomes untargetable for 4 seconds. This effect can be triggered once every 15 seconds. So this one sounds like it could be situational. If there are more than 4 phantoms on the battlefield, Bane will become untargetable. So it means he will not take any damage for 4 seconds. Which that could mean life or death for your team if Bane is able to do enough. But yeah, that one could be pretty situational there, though. And every 15 seconds, so we'll see if anybody builds Bane to plus 60 to test his plus 60 engraving out to see how well that one does. And next up we have Kelther. Displace. At the beginning of battles, Kelther swaps places with an enemy target. Any damage that the enemy receives will be increased by 35% for 7 seconds. This ability prioritizes enemy targets that mirror Kelther's position on the battlefield. At level 2, damage received by enemy is increased by 35% for 10 seconds. At level 3, damage received by enemy is increased by 50% for 10 seconds. So looking at his first engraving skill here, damage received by enemy is increased by 50% for 13 seconds. So it's increasing the time by 3 seconds, which that's just additional damage it looks like. But I don't know if it'll really be enough damage to really do anything. It might. This one might be a little bit situational, but we'll just have to see about that one. And looking at this one, Ethereal Resurgence. When Kelther dies, he comes back to the battlefield in spectral form. While in this spectral form, Kelther cannot be attacked, however he will gradually lose health over time. Simultaneously, Kelther is still able to use his normal attacks and ultimate ability normally in combat. Kelther's haste is increased by 80% for the time he remains on the battlefield in spectral form. And at level 2, 40% of Kelther's health is restored while in spectral form when any non-summoned enemy is slain. And at level 3, 60% of Kelther's health is restored while in spectral form when any non-summoned enemy is slain. Okay, looking at his second engraving skill, Kelther's attack rating is increased by 25% up until the enemy that originally killed him is slain. So if you're able to keep the enemy that originally killed Kelther alive, his attack rating will be increased by 25%. Which, yeah, this one will definitely need to be. This one was definitely situational. Yeah, you have to keep the enemy that killed Kelther alive until the end of battle to really see the effect of this one. So yeah, I don't know if this one will really work out. I mean, you can't really control which enemies which heroes kill, so yeah, that one will definitely be situational there. Yeah, the overall Kelther seems pretty decent, I guess. And next, looking at Silas. His first ability, Double Dosage. Silas sprays a powerful gas onto the battlefield that remains there for 12 seconds. Any ally standing within the gas cloud will recover health equal to 30% of Silas's attack rating value per second. If any enemy are standing within the gas cloud, they will suffer 60% damage per second. Level 2 reduces the health recovery rate of enemies within the gas cloud by 35%. And at level 3, Gas Cloud deals damage equal to 70% of Silas's attack rating per second to enemies. So Silas's first engraving skill here. Allies recover 40% worth of Silas's attack rating as health every second. So looking back at this one, it looks like it was originally at 30%, and it's going to be going up to 40%, which is a 10% increase. I feel like Silas does enough health regeneration already, so I don't know if this one will really do much, but that extra healing could do something in some situations. But yeah, overall, I feel like Silas does enough healing already. Looking at his second skill, Healing Haze, Silas creates a gas cloud that is capable of moving slowly around the battlefield. Any allies within the cloud's radius will recover 20% health of the health that they've already lost per second. The cloud will disappear once a total healing value equal to 500% of Silas's attack rating has been reached. And at level 3, the total amount of health that may be recovered is equal to 700% of Silas's attack rating. So looking back at the second skill here, allies within the gas cloud radius receive 10% less damage from enemies. So they're receiving 10% less damage when they're in cloud's radius, which I don't know if that will really do anything. I mean, it could do something for the enemies. I mean, reducing the damage is always a good thing. But yeah, we'll just have this one might also be situational for Silas. Yeah, Silas's looks pretty decent though. I mean, he already does enough healing as it is, and they're just giving him just a little bit more healing, it looks like. And moving on to Odin. Eviction. Odin opens up a portal to the void that sucks in the enemy with the highest percentage of health. The targeted enemy is then thrown out of the portal and onto the weakest enemy target, resulting in 180% AoE damage being dealt to the affected targets. And at level 3, damage is increased to 220%. Okay, looking at his engraving, damage is increased to 240%. So I believe that's a 20% increase in damage, which is average. That's about average from what I've seen. That's pretty average. And looking at Eye of Evil, Odin accumulates 1 Fiend point for every point of energy he gains. When Odin reaches 300, 1,000, and 2,000 Fiend points respectively, one of his eyes will open until all 3 of his eyes are open. After Odin's first eye has been opened, the AoE damage effect caused by the ability Eviction will now include a stun effect which stuns the affected enemies for 3 seconds. After Odin's second eye has been opened, the ability Void Lightning will additionally target the enemy that is currently standing farthest away from Odin. After Odin's third and final eye has been opened, Odin's normal attacks will cause his enemies to lose an additional 60 energy points per attack. That's a lot of text there. And at level 3 here, Odin's attack rating is increased by 15% and his haste is increased by 15 points each time he opens an eye. Okay, looking at his second engraving, Owen's attack rating is increased by 18% and his haste is increased by 20 points each time he opens an eye. Now the haste increase is always good there, increasing the haste to 20, when originally it was at 15, so 5 points of haste. I mean, that could make a noticeable difference, but, I mean, it's 5 points. And yeah, haste is always a good thing, but, yeah, we'll just have to see how that one does, though. That one, the haste there could do something, but also could also not do anything for Odin. We'll just have to see about that one. Yeah, Odin's looks pretty decent there, though, with that haste. And moving on to Isolde. Needle Strike. Isolde charges into a single enemy target, stunning them and knocking them backwards, finally stabbing the enemy with his needle for 190% damage. At level 2, final attack is increased to 270% damage, and level 3 final attack damage increased to 340% damage. Okay, looking at his first engraving skill here, final attack damage increased to 380% damage. So, it's at 340, so it's increasing it by 40%, which that is somewhat above average, but I don't know if that one's really going to do anything for Isolde, though. And looking at hypodermic healing, Isolde injects himself, restoring 16% of his health that he already lost per second over 8 seconds. At level 3, restores 20% of lost HP per second. Okay, looking at his second engraving skill, effects are increased to 10 seconds. So effects are increased to 10 seconds there. So it's increasing the time by 2 seconds, which, yeah, that I guess that could do something situationally maybe, but for like maybe the Isold cheese, but we'll just have to see about that one. He is healing himself more, which is really what the Isold cheese is. If you get his 3 of 9 furniture, he's able to do more damage the more health he's lost. And if you're able to get him more health, he'll be able to keep on doing that until he's pretty much unbeatable. So yeah, we'll just have to see about this plus 60. Overall, Isold's engraving looks pretty decent there. The damage on the first one is pretty good. Looks pretty good. Okay, so looking next over to Torn. Seething Death. Torn deals 180% AoE damage 3 times to enemies that are standing before him, with the final attack leeching 25% health from the final enemy. All enemies that were struck by this attack are unable to recover life for the following 9 seconds. Torn regrows his Bone Whip after using this ability. And at level 3, damage is increased to 200%. Okay, so looking over at Torn's first engraving skill, damage is increased to 210%. So it's increasing his damage by 10%, which is below average from what I've seen from the other factions. I don't think that's really going to do much for Torn, though. Okay, looking at Absorption. Torn absorbs the remains of any dead heroes on the battlefield and forms a Bone Whip out of their bones. Simultaneously, Torn recovers 30% of his max health and increases the value of his max health by the same amount. The area for all of Torn's AoE abilities is increased after this ability is used for the first time. At level 3, 40% of max HP is restored. So, looking at his second engraving skill, 50% of max HP is restored, which that one could do something. He's recovering half of his health with the plus 60. It's increasing it by 10%, which that one might be able to do something situationally, but we'll just have to see about this one. Torn's plus 60 engraving. You know, overall, the first one seems pretty. The first one seems below average, and the second one seems pretty decent there. So yeah, this one's pretty below average to decent for engravings. And looking at Damon here, the next Graveborn hero, Inanimate Companion. Damon uses his doll Stitchy to attack the enemy standing in front of him 3 times. Each attack deals 200% damage to the enemy, with the final attack causing the enemy to become stunned for 3 seconds. With level 3, after 9 seconds, Stitchy converts 150% of the damage he received during the previous 9 seconds into health for Damon. Okay, so looking at the first engraving here, damage dealt by Stitchy's 3 attacks is increased to 220%. So it's increasing the damage by an additional 20%, which again is pretty average for what I've seen. Yeah, that one's pretty average with the damage there. And Forbidden Power, Damon deals 250% damage to a nearby enemy target, but also receives 120% damage himself. Effects of this ability cannot kill Damon. And at level 3, damage dealt to the enemy is increased to 300%. So, okay, looking at his second skill here, Damon deals additional damage equal to 10% of his shield's value to the enemy. Additional damage cannot exceed 300% of Damon's own attack rating. So this one actually sounds pretty good here. He's dealing more damage to the enemies, which sounds pretty good, equal to 10% of his shield's value, and he cannot exceed 300% of Damon's own attack rating, which this one actually does sound pretty good. We'll just have to see about testing though if that one's actually good or not. But that one sounds actually pretty good. It's increasing the damage, and it can't exceed 300%. Yeah, it can't exceed 300% of Damon's own attack rating. So yeah, we'll just have to see about that one though. That 60 actually looks pretty good though. Okay, looking over to Theowin, the next hero here. Spectral Curse. Theowin enters spectral form and charges ahead, cursing every enemy that she passes through, dealing 130% damage to them. If an enemy is already cursed, the curse is removed, and Theowin instead deals damage equal to 15% of enemies' max health, ignoring all of their defense. Damage dealt cannot exceed 600% of Theowin's attack rating, while in spectral form, Theowin is immune to enemy control abilities. With level 3, damage dealt to enemies when specters pass through them is increased to 170%. So looking at the first engraving here, damage dealt to enemies when specters pass through them is increased to 200%. So it's increasing the damage by 30%, which that actually is above average from what I've seen. But I don't know if that's really going to do anything. I mean, the damage there is pretty good though, but I don't know if that's really going to do anything for Theowin though. And Song of Mourning. Whenever Theowin receives damage that exceeds 10% of her current health, the exceeding amount of damage shall be reduced by 55%. And at level 3, exceeding damage is reduced by 65%. So with her second skill, Engraving, ability is now triggered when Theowin receives any damage that exceeds 8% of her current health. So when Theowin receives any damage that exceeds 8% of her current health, this ability will now trigger, which that actually sounds pretty good. That's not a lot of damage to take, so this ability will be triggered, I feel like, pretty early on. So yeah, I feel like, whenever Theowin receives damage exceeds 10% of her current health, the exceeding amount of damage shall be reduced by 65%. So it's increasing. I believe it's decreasing this by 2%, which, yeah, this was already pretty low before. So I don't. This one will be triggering it maybe a little bit earlier, but yeah, I feel like this ability will be triggered around the same time, because when you get into high level deficits, the enemies do a lot more damage. So yeah, I don't know if this one will really do much in terms of making this ability trigger faster though. Overall, Theowin's looks pretty average though, in terms of Engraving. And moving on to Desira, the second Graveborn healer here. Oceanic Shield. Desira creates a protective bubble around the most injured ally that allows them to gradually restore 18% worth of Desira's max health for 5 seconds. If the target is dealt damage that exceeds 50% of their current health while the protective bubble exists, the bubble will disappear and the damage shall be completely ignored, allowing the target to instantly recover 1.5 times the amount of remaining health that they have yet to recover. At level 2, the most injured ally gradually restores 24% of Desira's max health. And at level 3, the most injured ally immediately recovers 1.75 times the amount of remaining health that they have yet to recover. Okay, so looking at the first skill here, the most injured ally gradually restores 28% of Desira's max health. So looking back at this one, it's first at 24, it looks like, and I believe it said 28. So it's increasing it by 4%, which, yeah, I don't know if that will really do anything. It's only increasing the most injured ally gradually restores 28% of Desira's max health. So it's only increasing it by 4%, which I don't know if that one will really do anything for Desira. And Oceanic Mist. Desira summons the Oceanic Mist that spreads from behind the allied side backline toward the enemy's backline, which will then cover the whole battlefield. Any allies within the mist shall recover an amount of health equal to 15% of Desira's attack rating every 0.5 seconds. The Oceanic Mist will stay on the battlefield for a maximum of 12 seconds and shall also disappear if Desira dies. And at level 3, amount of health recovered is equal to 20% of Desir's attack rating. Okay, looking at the second skill here, amount of health recovered is equal to 22% of Desir's attack rating. So it's increasing it by an additional 2%, which, yeah, I don't think that one's going to do anything either. I think the main problem people have with this ability is that it moves from one side of the battlefield to the other very slowly, which, yeah, I've seen that. It definitely is very slow. So it isn't really able to do as much healing as it could be. And it's only increasing this one by 2%, which, yeah, that one doesn't seem like it's going to really affect anything. Yeah, overall, Desires honestly looks pretty terrible, in my opinion. And going over to, I believe this is the final, a Graveborn Hodgkin. And going over to Jolly Roger. Hodgkin summons down a Jolly Roger flag that deals 230% AoE damage to nearby enemies. Allied heroes that are within range have their defense ratings increased by 20% and their attack ratings increased by 20% for the following 10 seconds. If an enemy within range has had their soul siphoned, the flag shall be strengthened with its duration being extended to 3 seconds. After the flag has been strengthened, any allied heroes within range shall have their haste additionally increased by 35 points. And at level 2, damage is increased to 260%. And at level 3, allied heroes within range have their defense ratings increased by 30% and attack ratings increased by 30%. Okay, looking at his first engraving skill, damage is increased to 280%. So it's increasing damage by an additional 20%, which, again, is average from what I've seen from the other factions. That one's pretty average. And looking at Reviler's Defiance, Hodgkin starts blocking frontal damage and is immune to control effects for up to 3 seconds, or until he blocks an amount of damage equal to 25% of his max health. After Hodgkin finishes blocking damage, he immediately retaliates against the attacker, dealing up to 15% of the attacker's max health as damage. The amount of damage dealt is determined by the duration of time Hodgkin blocks damage for, but shall not exceed 550% of Hodgkin's own attack rating. At level 2, damage equal to 35% of Hodgkin's max health can be blocked, and at level 3, damage up to 20% of the target's max health. Okay, so looking at his plus 60 engraving, blocking time is ignored. Hodgkin shall always deal damage equal to 20% of the target's max health. So the blocking time will be ignored here, and Hodgkin will always deal damage equal to 20% of the target's max health. Now this one, the way I'm thinking about this is that he like throughout, I don't know if this one's talking about if he'll deal 20% of the target's max health for the entire battle, or what. I'm kind of confused about what they're saying here about blocking time is ignored. I don't know what they mean by this one here. So like, I just can't really decipher what they're trying to say with this plus 60. What I'm getting at is that he will always deal 20% damage of the target's max health for the entire battle if they're removing the blocking time, ignoring the blocking time. Yeah, but I just if that's what they're saying, this one might actually do quite a bit of damage. But yeah, I just don't know what they're trying to say with the plus 60. And overall it seems with the plus 31, it seems pretty average. And yeah, I believe that is the last. Yep, that's the last Graveborn hero. And this will be pretty much the end of the video. I just wanted to look at the Graveborn engravings here. And yeah, most of them honestly seem average. There are a few heroes that stand out, but yeah, most of them seem either pretty average or could be situational. So thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, and comment anything you want to see me do in AFK Arena, and I might do it in the future. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later.